Hi everyone, welcome to another Aish UK live show. I'm Danielle Jeffries, currently in my third year at University of Bristol. We've got a really exciting show lined up for you tonight with some really great guests. But first, let's announce our little competition. If you want to post your answers in the comment section below, the winner will actually receive a £20 Amazon voucher. Woo! So our question is, with 93%, Israel has the highest percentage of what? So you can see that the question is coming below the screen. It's coming on the bottom. So feel free to post your answers and we'll let you know at the end what the answer is. If any of you have any questions throughout the whole show, or you've got any shout outs that you want to shout out to people, also feel free to comment and we'll give you a nice shout out and address these questions with our guests. So without further ado, let's announce and welcome our special guest tonight. So we have Josh Collins, the Nottingham JSOC president.
Hello.
We have Sam Bax, the Bristol president.
Hello.
And we have Grace Silverstein, the Leeds JSOC president.
Hi.
And we also have Daniel Sachs, the Birmingham ex-JSOC president.
Hello.
So these are all our amazing guests today, a great community of JSOC presidents and an ex-president over here. So thank you so much for joining, guys. So before we get our teeth stuck into this, I've got like a little game, something a bit lighter to go off. So there's a game called Sink or Swim. I'm going to move out of the way and I'm going to show you. Over here, I've got a bowl of water and some items. And I'm going to be putting the items in the water and you've basically got to predict whether they're going to sink or swim. So our JSOC presidents here are going to respond their answers. If you want to comment what you think is going to happen, go for it. So we've got a few different household traditional items over here. So I've got a little L'chaim shot glass over here, which is going to go into the water. So do we think that is going to sink or swim?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm going to think it's got to sink, surely.
I think sink.
It's going to fill up.
Right, well, I'm going to pop it in that way, over like so. And it sinks because as soon as the glass, let's put it over here, you can see, as soon as the glass is filled with water, you can see that it's going to sink. Okay, our next item, here I've got my lovely little gold Kai necklace. Can you see it? So do we think that is going to sink or swim?
Sink.
Sink.
I would think I
Sink. 100% sink.
Okay, let's pop it in the water like so. Also sinks, so that's going to need a dry afterwards. Next we've got a Shabbat candle. Any ideas what will happen with this?
Sink.
I also think that will sink.
I haven't tested these before, so I don't actually know the answer, if I'm honest. So let's pop them into the water. That actually floats. You can see it's actually at the top of the water. The candle wax is floating. Next we have some matches in preparation for our Shabbat candles. So I'm going to put one single match in the water. So what do you think is going to happen with that? You think it's going to swim, Sam and Daniel? Okay, let's have a try. So the single match is going to go on that. And it is swimming. It is floating on top of the water. So that isn't a sinker, that one. Okay, next, I'm going to put some croutons in because we all love some croutons with our chicken soup, but this is water. So we're going to try and we're just going to sprinkle a few croutons on the top of the water. What do we think is going to happen here?
I think swim.
Okay, most people think it's going to swim, it's going to float. So let's just sprinkle a few on top. Yeah, obviously we know that because when we have our bowls of chicken soup, they float to the top. So that's kind of that was a good one. And the last one, well, I thought if we're doing croutons, I kind of had to go with some more chicken soup as well. So I've got a pot off them. I'm literally just going to get a spoonful of it and just put the powder on top. Now, bear in mind, I'm not going to be mixing this. I'm just going to put it on top. What do you think is going to happen to the spoonful of Osem powder? I think that's going to float. Okay, it's going to swim. So I'm going to throw it in with the croutons. And it's floating. Well, the bits that aren't disintegrating, they are floating. Again, there's my chicken soup ready for tonight. After this, that'll be nice and yummy. Might need to eat it up there. But yeah, okay. I hope you enjoy that little game at the beginning. So we're going to move on to the main segment of tonight's show. So we think it's really important that we hear some views from our JSOC presidents, people who are leaders' views on a very topical issue. It might get a little political, but remember, our guests are talking theoretically, they're saying their opinions, so don't take anything personally. If you've got a particular question regarding tonight's topic, please again feel free to comment, and we'd love to answer your questions later on in the show. So the question that we're going to be talking about tonight, and the topic is it our place as a Jewish youth community to call out the Israeli government? So this is in light of a recent situation, a recent letter which was actually signed by 500 Jewish youth members to encourage the Board of Deputies in Israel to criticize the Israeli government. So there was a big article produced on this. The JC wrote an article a few days ago, and you'll see the headlines appearing on the screen. So we're just going to discuss whether we think that it's all right to say this. So I'm going to direct to each specific JSOC president a specific question. So I'll be asking you directly questions and then answering any extra questions that come up on the comments. So firstly, I'm going to ask Samuel your question. So firstly, I want to know what your perspective is on the recent development. Like, is this letter criticizing the Israeli government something that you support, something you understand or you agree with? Like, love to hear what you're going to say about this.
It's a very good question. I don't really know. I read the article earlier today and I didn't know about it really at the time, but I do support the article, the point of view. I think that, it is right to probably criticize the Israeli government. I think the Jewish Board of Deputies, or like the Jewish representative bodies, should be able to have an opinion that's different from Israeli politics, because I think that the point of the Board of Jewish Deputies is partly to represent Jews in the UK, and that's all different types of Jews and everyone's different opinion. And I think they should probably get the broad sense of what the community thinks. And I think the community is probably quite Zionistic in the UK. I mean, at least that's my understanding. And as it's Zionistic, it should obviously support Zionism and the Jewish state, but actual policies within the country, I think the Jewish board can be slightly more critical instead of just going along with whatever the government is endeavouring to do. So that would be my views.
Yeah, that's a really good point of view, and we really appreciate you giving your opinion on this. It's very interesting to hear people that have clearly been appointed in a role to represent the JSOCs within your universities to talk about this kind of topic, that we feel like you should represent everyone. So I'm going to go to Josh next. So Josh, what's your perspective on this? Like, do you encourage your JSOC to stand behind these ideas, or to say what they want to say to the public and criticize the Israeli government?
Hi Danielle. I definitely agree with a lot of what Sam was saying, in that we are in the positions that we are in because people from our community acknowledge that we hold views that are in general shared by our wider university Jewish populations. With that in mind, surely we are the front line with regards to speaking out when we feel something isn't right. And that's what I feel is the case here. I don't necessarily think it's a thing of whether, so this particular article was about speaking up against annexation. I don't even think the whole issue is necessarily about whether annexation is the right thing or not. I think the issue is about allowing people of our age and our position to be heard. And I think that by signing this petition, those people in our community have definitely proven and demonstrated that we have a voice and we won't be silent, and we will speak out when we feel something isn't right. Yeah,
I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, I think that the the youth. We are technically the generation of tomorrow, as we say, and to say our opinions, I think it is important. I agree with what you're saying. Whether people agree with those opinions or not, just having that voice is definitely important, in my opinion. So I'm going to go to Daniel for my next question. So, as one of the JSOC, ex-presidents of one of the largest JSOCs in the country, were there any other did you ever come into situations where you had political questions like this, you had to represent how you felt or on behalf of the rest of your JSOC in a kind of a political situation like this?
So when I was president, I was kind of around the time when the whole question of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and Corbyn was a really big issue. Now, I think there's kind of a big difference. There's obviously a big difference between the two, and a distinction that needs to be made. Firstly, mainly between the places that it's going on. So I think this letter asking the Board of Deputies to get involved in a foreign powers policy making, it's not so appropriate. The thing is, the Board of Deputies is representative of British Jews. Now, one of the big things about being British Jews is, well, we're British. We're not responsible for the actions of the State of Israel. Now, I understand that when something happens in the Middle East, there's always repercussions somewhere, whether it's for the Jewish community, the Muslim community, or whatnot, or any other minority community. However, to get the Board of Deputies who represent the Jews to turn around and say, look, we condemn what the Israeli government are doing, it's not so appropriate, especially when this petition is claiming that it represents most of British Jewry. I mean, me personally, it's not something I would sign. I know plenty of my friends who both have signed it and both who wouldn't sign it. So to claim that it's representative of the amount of people that it's claiming to be is not so fair. You can even see that with the number when they said about 500. There were a lot of signatures that had to be taken off, whether they weren't Jewish, they weren't youth, they weren't British. There's so many different factors contributing to it. And I just think that we should be getting involved in politics, but at this sort of level, getting the representatives of British Jews getting involved, it's not so appropriate.
I think that's a really interesting point of view. I think that I completely agree with what you said. And that's, again, some people read the title and you just straight away assume something. But like you said, with the whole only 500 people, and that's a fairly big number. But in the grand scheme of things, when discussing politics, 500 might not be as big as people are thinking. And I get what you say. That's probably not representative of the whole sample, which is, if you're talking whether that's the Israeli community or whether it's the Jewish community, it's even bigger. So if you're talking that, then that's not a representative sample when taking an opinion on board. And I get that point of view completely. I think it's really interesting to sort of see that support for that criticism and not support for it. So Grace, I'm going to come to you next. So what's your take on all of this? Like I say, this is just an opinion thing. There's no right or wrong. I think it's really interesting to hear from our presidents of some of the biggest JSOCs in the country. So I would really love to know what you think of this.
So I think my opinion has kind of been touched upon, that it gives our place to criticize what's going on in Israel, since it's our homeland and everything, and it's representing Jews us to an extent. But I also think that the full picture, there's a full picture, and I think this is only a very small part. It's a very small part.
Yeah.
The whole point, I think we only see a part of it.
I think sometimes I find it interesting that, it's good to listen to people's opinion and criticize, but whether that makes a difference or actually does anything is another concept as well. I think that's an interesting point. Yeah. So we're just going to go over it again. I think it's a really interesting concept, and there's clearly a whole bigger dynamic here. There's a specific aspect of the article in the sense that it's this idea of criticizing the Israeli government for the specific action of annexing the West Bank. But obviously this kind of discussion is more taking it back to whether we think we have the voice, or the British Jewry or British youth have the voice to do so. So there's kind of two sorts of discussions going on there. But let's come back to you and ask whether you think it's the right move to do this. Obviously this is going on, but if you were running this article or writing this article, would you even run this campaign or this debate? Like, how would you do so?
How would I run the article? Oh, I'm not really sure. I think that I don't know if it's I don't really get what the point of the timing is. Like, I don't know if it's an initiative that's happening quite soon. Like, I think in Israeli politics, things happen quite quickly. But I'm not really sure what the Jewish board was meant to do and when they're meant to do it. But I think that if I was running it, I would have it in the newspaper. I think it's a good thing that people read, and in the Jewish newspaper where, you know, the emphasis is on Jewish current affairs and different issues that are going on. I think that with like Jewish representation, it can sometimes be the case that like the board or like certain Jewish leaders come from a particular point of view, and that could be like the Orthodox point of view, or it could be like a particular Zionistic point of view. So I think it's and as we all know, like Jews in the UK, it's quite a broad church. You know, like the Jews that you meet on a university campus in the UK may not be representative by like the Jewish board or Jewish leaders. So I think, yeah, it's important to get everyone's point of view as opposed to like a particular aspect or a particular group within the Jewish community. But yeah, no, I think you're right as well, in the sense that on university, like Jewish students have their own point of view, and especially in Bristol, it doesn't come up too often, but when it does come up, there are two different sides that's always quite clear. And I think it's important to be said in a newspaper so that everyone can also share in that point of view and the debate.
So, I mean, obviously, like this call is going on with JSOC presidents and Daniel, the Birmingham ex-JSOC president from last year. Like, so do you think that the JSOCs and the Jewish students, I'm not talking like youth movements or like even British Jews, like just specifically JSOCs and the Jewish students, whether we have like do we speak loud enough when saying our opinions? So Josh, I want to direct that question to you. Like, do you think that like as a Nottingham JSOC president, like, do you think that the JSOCs have a loud enough voice? Do you think they should have a loud voice? Like, how do you think this should be addressed?
That is a very interesting question. I think on issues like this, it can often get quite big, quite controversial quite quickly. And if tensions potentially aren't resolved from either side, it could become really heated. So when you debate something like the majority of things that are related to Israel, there's a lot of nuances involved. And as a president, you're in a bit of an interesting position in that what you say most likely has a higher value than coming from potentially a normal member of the community. People are more likely to listen to you, but at the same time, you need to be representative of the people who you represent, of who elected you, and you need to listen to them and make sure that that their views are being heard to the national community through you. So those trying to marry those interesting two ideas with relation to something that always comes up as controversial as Israel, and especially annexation and anything that has to do like that, it is a challenge. I personally think that as JSOC president, you just really need to listen to everybody. You need to understand, of course, both sides. Of course, you're going to have your own side in the debate. But I think understanding what any other sides have to say before countering that, before disagreeing that, is very important, especially in the role that we're in.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think that, I mean, you've like all clearly been elected for a specific reason. I mean, like I said, mentioned before, these are some of the biggest JSOCs in the country, and you guys have been elected to represent that whole JSOC community and all Jewish students at that specific university. So you've got a big role in that. Daniel, I've got a question for you. I'd love to know if anything's ever happened in the past where you've actually had to support something because the rest of your JSOC agree with the situation, where actually you personally wouldn't do that specific thing, whether that's to do with Israel or anything else. Like, clearly that's quite a controversial thing. Like, you have to sort of represent everyone, but like, what's your opinion on that kind of thing?
So one thing that I would say is, as JSOC president, one of the biggest things you'll end up dealing with is a lot of cases of anti-Semitism, and that's kind of the main most politically charged thing in terms of where it's coming from. So in terms of that, I guess I had quite an easy time because most people tend to agree that anti-Semitism is bad, and people don't like it. Now, obviously, within JSOC, you have differing opinions and differing views. I think one of the easiest ways to pick that out is to see, who calls it the West Bank, who calls it Judea and Samaria, who calls it the occupied territories. You have such a wide range of opinions. So I think the main challenge was, and it's something which you've got to be very careful about in anything you do, is making sure that the events you're putting on kind of have a wide enough range of different opinions. So, you're not bringing in speakers from only one sort of political persuasion, that you're balancing it enough that you're not alienating people from your JSOC, but at the same time, you're allowing a political discussion to flourish. I mean, shutting down one side of an argument is never the way to win. It's not conducive. It doesn't help do anything. And really, I think it's one of the successes of Birmingham JSOC in that there's such a diverse range of opinions and such a diverse range of events that come along with it, such a diverse range of speakers, discussions going on at Friday night. And it's possibly one of the most valuable things within the Jewish community to create that internal dialogue, that discussion, whether it be criticizing policies of the British government or the Israeli government, discussing world politics, anything. And keeping the conversation going is really the best way to keep it going. And I think sometimes people fall out of the pattern of being able to keep everything fair and balanced. And that's one of definitely the biggest challenges that JSOCs will have in keeping that focus and making sure you're getting everything in and that you really are representing all of the Jews within your society.
I think that's a really interesting point. I mean, going back to what you said before about the article and you not thinking that actually that represents the whole opinion, like it's kind of the same thing as you're saying there, in the sense that article doesn't represent enough opinions and enough ideas on that. And I think, I mean, I get that completely. And I think that it's a really important point because actually this article is so one-sided and so limited in that sample in that sense. And that's exactly what you said before as well. So that really supports your answer there. Grace, what are your opinions on this? Like, do you think that we need to keep criticizing? Do you think that like you guys should be contacting, as representatives, should be contacting for like higher up people to like do something about this or get a debate going or contact people? Or do you think we even have a right to say anything? Like, what are your like last comments on this?
So from like my JSOC point of view, we've also like what has been said already, really, that like all inclusive. I think it's really important to see all sides, all point of views, so that nobody feels isolated and that nobody feels that their voice isn't being heard. I think it's really important that everybody's voice is being heard, and everyone's opinions are important so that they can speak freely. Everyone's got the right to, and I think I think as long as everyone's point of views are seen, then I think there's no right to judge. Just
I think like you guys have been selected to represent like the JSOC communities, which is amazing. And I think I want to know, like, I mean, I'll go to specific people, but like, are you happy in taking this position? Have you found that this is a lot of pressure for you? Like, is it out of your comfort zone politically? Like, are you comfortable having these debates with people? I mean, Sam, what's your response to that?
Yeah, I think it does. It took me out of my comfort zone for a bit. I think because of the lockdown and the fact that Bristol shut quite quickly, it's probably been a bit different to how previous people have had to deal with it. So in a way, that's been okay because there's been a bit of a load off your back. But at the same time, it would have been nice to still be in Bristol. I would definitely do it again. I don't regret not doing it. I think that it's worthwhile to do. You get to meet a lot of Jews. It's quite good for you to network with other Jews on your campus. And it's been a really good way to kind of like get people involved and like try and make something work, which I think is very worthwhile, especially in somewhere like Bristol, where each year it's a bit hit and miss with the number of Jews that come to Bristol. And in years where it's really big, it's quite amazing. But then in other years, you really try and have to make it work and make sure that people get to meet each other at a JSOC house or a Hillel house. And you have to run those events so that people come together. And it is really nice often. I think people really do enjoy coming to Jewish socials where they know their mates. Everyone comes from the same point of view. Everyone, comes from a similar background, and people like to just hang out and socialize together.
So, like Josh, just touching on what Sam said there about being in lockdown and this kind of being like a different environment to like what normal JSOCs might experience or JSOC presidents might have. Like, what's your opinion on that kind of thing?
Of course, it's very interesting from our perspective. I'm sure that no JSOC presidents in history, however large challenges we faced, have never had to face something like this. But in a sense, it's sort of shown the power of community in a way that lots of JSOC presidents from across the country have been in touch with myself. Everyone's really keen to sort of play their part in continuing activities, continuing Jewish student life in a virtual environment. And I think that, yeah, it has been tough. But if anybody's going to show the world how to cope, it will be the Jewish community.
Yeah, I mean, we're a very tight-knit community. Like, that's clearly shown through this, and I just hope that after this it continues. Daniel, I want to go to you because obviously, like, this is different to you. Like, you were the JSOC president, was it last year or the year before? Last year, and in that sense, like, this is clearly a different experience. Like, is there anything you didn't do that you wish you'd done, or like, in the sense that like you're seeing how it is be done in lockdown? Are you struggling with that sort of disconnection in that role? Like, how has that affected you?
So I think to start by answering this, I have to say a massive well played to and well done to this year's JSOC committee and the president, Natasha Hertz. They've done a really awesome job at keeping everyone engaged. The Facebook group's been very active with lots of videos, cooking classes, things like that. They've done a really, really good job. I have to say, I'm not quite sure how I personally would have gone about doing it in lockdown. I think the way that this year's JSOC committee have done it, they've handled it unbelievably well. They've taken a very unique and challenging situation that's completely, it's completely devoid of politics or any other, I guess, trivial issues that tend to pop up as a JSOC. And they've really risen to the challenge. They've made it interactive. They've allowed people to communicate, and they've just kept it up and done a really awesome job. The same goes with UJS. They've managed to keep everybody engaged. They've kept things going, and I think for JSOCs nationally, I think everyone's really risen to the challenge. It's been a very difficult time for people, especially being isolated from the rest of the world. And I really think, massive kol hakavod to JSOC and all of the JSOCs around the country.
I think that's amazing. And like you mentioned, Natasha Hurst as the JSOC president of Birmingham currently, like, clearly doing an amazing job. So massive thanks to all of you JSOC presidents. Like, you're clearly doing all you can and working really hard to get through this. And like you mentioned, UJS, Offenberg, like, clearly doing an amazing job to keep the community going, because morale is down, and like to have that still there and for students to still be able to connect with the JSOC during times like this is really important. I mean, like, Grace, how have you been doing it in Leeds? Like, has anything changed? Are you feeling like you're still in your role, you're comfortable, you want to keep making things happen? Like, how are you feeling about all this?
So obviously not as busy, but it has still, we've been, making posts, trying to keep everybody, high spirit, trying to include everyone, trying to share whatever events are going, whether it's like different organizations on campus that we have running events. We make sure that we let as many people know as possible. Obviously it's not the same as what we're used to, but but what Josh said was really true about how like it's shown a real sense of community.
And ability to adapt is just so important in this kind of situation. So that's really, really cool. But in a really, really nice way to end sort of this discussion off, that we're a great community. We can still get through these kind of things, having discussions and things like this. So that's really lovely to hear. Have you guys got anything else you want to like end the conversation on, or anything else to say? I mean, you've all spoken amazingly, and like we really, really enjoy listening to and take on your input. Like, you're representatives of the JSOC, like the biggest JSOC. So want to give a shout out to your family or anything you want to do, like just say hi to everyone, go for it.
Can I just to add one thing? I think everyone's very good at being critical. I think we're all very good at doing that. But I think one thing that doesn't really happen too often is people focusing on the good things, especially at the moment if we're taking the conversation back to Israel. So at the moment, the cooperation between the Israelis and Palestinians is like it's never been before. The way that they're cooperating in terms of the coronavirus, the Israelis providing a lot of medical assistance to the Palestinians, and they're working very well together, supporting each other's hospitals and just supporting each other. I mean, I was talking about it earlier, in the West Bank, there were 354 cases and only 2 deaths. The cooperation has been really, really incredible. And I think it's important for us as the Jewish community to not always be critical. Criticizing, though, is important. I personally do not agree with all of the policies of the incumbent government, and I don't think anybody does. However, I think it's also important to focus on the positives, and especially now with regards to the Israeli and Palestinian cooperation, that's been some of the best ever. And I just wanted to mention that. And please do go away, to anyone watching this, please do go away and read about it, share information, and make it a bit more of a bigger discussion point.
I think that's really important, and I think positivity is so key, not just regards to this conversation, but to do with anything. See 2 sides of the story is so important, and we really appreciate hearing that from you guys. Any of the others want to say anything, or you good? Okay, so we're gonna sort of end this discussion. At the beginning, we asked the question for the competition. The winner of £20 for an Amazon voucher was, with 93%, Israel has the highest percentage of what? I mean, I'll give you the answer, but have you guys got any guesses that you want to put forward to the answer to that question? No ideas.
Prime Ministers
No ideas. What did you say, Daniel? Sorry.
Prime Ministers per capita.
No, the answer is actually really something that I wouldn't have thought of either, to be honest. The answer to this big question of 92%, Israel has the highest percentage of what? It is homes with solar-powered water heating.
Wow,
I mean, they clearly have more sun there, so. But yeah, that's an interesting fact of the day for you all. So, I'm now going to introduce Rabbi Gideon Goldwater, the director of Aish On Campus, for the source of the day.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi,
thanks so much. Thank you so much for hosting this evening and welcoming some really, really great guests, and for really facilitating a fantastic discussion. I've been sitting here, like, I've been receiving questions, loads of different questions from different people. I think actually the idea of bringing together the 4 JSOC presidents, representative of perhaps the 4 biggest Junis in the country, it actually ties in very nicely with an idea I wanted to share. This is so rabbinic to do this. I hate this, but the time of year that we're about to enter is literally 2 weeks away from Shavuot, the time when the Jewish people stood around Mount Sinai and received the Torah. And one of the kind of walkaway messages that I think is so appropriate and so relevant, not just for the times that we're in, but also particularly for this show, is that as we stood there, the kind of unique feature of that moment of Jewish history, if there were, there were many, but one key ingredient that the Jewish people were able to experience at that point was a complete and total unity. It says that we were like one person with one heart, the entire nation, one person with one heart. We oversaw each other's differences. We were able to come together. And it was because we were able to do that, that was the moment of national revelation when we were able to experience as an entire nation what we celebrate on Shavuot, the giving of the Torah. And to see JSOC presidents from Bristol, Nottingham, Birmingham, and Leeds come together to discuss something that might be quite a controversial topic, and yet hear each other out with different perspectives was fantastic. And we really, really thank them. I know that they're watching now. They can hear me behind stage. Thank you so much for your time, for engaging with this discussion and sharing your thoughts with our audience. Before I say a final farewell this evening, I have something really exciting for anyone watching out there, whether you're watching live now or whether you're going to be someone watching over the next few weeks this show. I'd like to share with you another exciting initiative that Aish UK are providing for anyone who's finding themselves at home at the moment with a little bit more free time than they would have normally and would like to do something really meaningful with that time, like to engage in something that they haven't necessarily had the opportunity to do. We are offering the services, we are able to provide and set you up on your terms in something where you'd be interested in learning. We can match you up with a learning partner, learn what you want, when you want. You can see my hands at the side over here. I can show you the picture in the middle there. You can see learn what you want, when you want. Please be in touch with Aish UK. You can see our website going along at the bottom of the stream. If you want to be in touch with us, please do. For tonight, though, that is all for this evening's show. Please join us again next week for another live show with Aish UK on Wednesday evenings at this later time of 9 p.m. It's been a pleasure hosting you this evening. We hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Good evening.
Thank you.